Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seat belts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before I may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, what can we say with respect to the mafioso quafioso, Donaldov, Julius Caesar Trumpidian? If there's one thing that we've tried to warn for nearly a year now here at Radio Aviation Excellence the Wright Flyer with respect to Donald Trump, it's that he doesn't mean a damn thing that he says, and that he never really has. And of course, the Lion Branch Trumpidians have gone out of their way in an attempt to ignore that, in an attempt to rewrite history, to rewrite who Trump is, to try and force us into that tyranny of a false unity. But we here understand that he is nothing short of a con man, a con artist, a snake oil salesman. This is why I have called him the P.T. Barnum of our era. And there is no way around that. He literally goes forth and says all sorts of different and contradictory things without any thought as to what he's saying or what the impact may be. And it's why we have also questioned whether he was serious about winning this election. Now, I think he is serious now because he sees the potential amount of unfettered power that he could wield as the chief executive of these United States of America, and that has made him just power hungry. But he is not going to be able to do that if he betrays the base of the Lion Branch Trumpidians' tabernacle there, and that's the problem. He literally has come out and alienated them on the pet issue, the one that he hijacked and utilized to foist himself to the top of the gutless opposition party contenders. And so we see that when he does that, he's essentially playing with fire. Because part of the reason that disillusioned conservatives were looking for a messianic figure, irrespective of the fact that that is a very dangerous way to approach the American system of polity, is because they feel that the American system of polity is broken, that they have been lied to by the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, what is known in the common vernacular as the so-called establishment wing of the Republican Party, and therefore they wanted somebody who they thought was a straight shooter, somebody who they thought or believed or had allowed themselves to be convinced that he told things as they were, that he was a straight shooter, that he shot from the hip. Well, unfortunately, Trump just ain't that guy. Trump has always been a pathological liar. He has surrounded himself with pathological liars, crooks, and criminals. After all, he's been friends with Hillary Rotten Clinton and her husband for decades now. And it doesn't take much to recall that during the 2008 election cycle, he had gone out in front of the cameras for the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and proclaimed with carte blanche that Hillary Clinton would make a fantastic president. Back in 2008, Trump had made an appearance on CNN with Wolf Blitzer. Almost sounds like something that your cat does in the morning when it has a fur ball. Wolf Blitzer. He appeared there, and one of the things that he said was that Clinton would consider naming Barack Obama as her vice president when she gets the nomination, but she's nowhere near a shoo-in. That was Trump speaking back in 2008, and then he continued. For his part, Obama said he's just focused on winning the nomination, although at least one member of his team said Clinton would make a good vice president. Then, here's the important part, folks. Trump said this on Wolf Blitzer all the way back in 2008. Well, I know her, and she'd make a good president or good vice president. You see, folks, Trump is not this political outsider that everyone has managed to convince themselves that he is, much less a conservative. And that's why he said he thought Hillary Rotten Clinton would make a good president or vice president. Now, I know that the Lion Branch Trumpidians will come forth and try and say that, well, you can't use what he said 8 years ago. Well, why the hell not? He's been making the consideration to run for president for at least 16 years. He seriously considered it back in 2000. And that was one of the reasons why he distanced himself from the Reform Party that was originally formed by Ross Perot, because he was having, at that time, serious presidential aspirations, and he was just very discomforted by the fact that former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, David Duke, had become a member of that party. And so he had written or penned an op-ed article in the New York Times back in 2000 stating that, very vociferously might I add, that that was the reason he was taking himself out of the Reform Party. And then, laughably, in this 2016 presidential election cycle, after he had received the tacit endorsement of Duke, he sat there and tried to say that he'd never heard of him. It's this type of flippant, open, obvious, and overt lying, this intellectual disingenuousness on the part of the quaff waffler, that makes him such a dangerous candidate, because we have no idea what he truly stands for. Sure. People are going to sit there and try and say that, well, he's never been a politician before, and he had to say all sorts of different things. That's just the price of doing business in a truly hostile environment for business there in New York City. But I'm going to call bovine excrement on this, folks. I am literally going to call bovine excrement on it, because that is what it is. It is a load of it, and it has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. We have to be very cognizant of the dangers and threats that we face in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. It's why this 2016 presidential election cycle was supposed to be such a pivotally important one. But we see that the gutless opposition party, or GOP, has dropped the ball. And they have dropped the ball by turning to a man whom we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, for 11 months now have been warning is a charlatan, a crook, a huckster, a liar, a man who has no moral compass, has no core political philosophies or policies, a man who just sways with the wind when it comes to conservatism, because for the vast majority of his 70 years spent on God's green earth, he has adhered to frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist agendas, and that has been his goal and his priority. So this is really uncharted territory for him. He's uncomfortable here. He's never once truly adhered to conservative principles or truly believed in conservative principles. He's just another big government frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist, as we have reiterated to the point of ad nauseum. But again, the Lion Branch Trumpidians that suffer from acute ostrich syndrome would rather shove their heads up their posterior than in the sand even, or, more importantly, than to listen to the truth, to listen to what common sense dictates to anyone who has a modicum of sanity, who has been observing this electoral process with any form or facet of objectivity. It's plain as day. It's clear and present. It's open and obvious that he is not a conservative. But, going back to what Trump was saying back in 2008, he said, a lot of people think a Clinton-Obama or Obama-Clinton pairing would be a dream ticket in November. But for that to happen, one of them has to be willing to serve as number two. Until that time, it's going to be very interesting. So why is it that he would go out and say those things and then be considered the paragon of conservative values and virtue in this 2016 presidential election cycle? Now, of course, the Lion Branch Trumpidians try and come back and say that people change and that Trump has clearly changed. And they point to Reagan. That is such a specious argument. It is such a load of steaming bovine excrement that it hardly deserves merit of mention, except for the fact that it has gained such prominence by the Trumpidian tabernacle, and therefore we must address it. The reason that we call it intellectually disingenuous to try and make that comparison between Ronald Reagan and Donald Julius Caesar Trumpolini is that Reagan had many decades worth of supporting conservative causes and being a conservative governor of a very left-wing state under his belt. He had at least 30 years of it. Trump just the night before the election, essentially the night before he officially threw his quaff into the ring, decided that he would, quote-unquote, embrace conservatism. Yet again, the consistent inconsistency on his part, the way that he seems to embrace the two-dimensional stereotypical caricatures used by the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftist to pigeonhole the right in this country, seems to suggest that he never really did embrace it. And folks, I know, newsflash here, Donald J. Trump never did embrace conservatism because Donald J. Trump was never conservative. It's just the point of the fact. It's just the facts. That is the harsh, cold, stark reality that each of us must awaken to in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. If we are ever going to place the United States of America back onto the path to prosperity, we have got to stop looking for messianic figures to come down and save us from the failed policies of the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftists because of the very design of this government. Going back to the foundational image of our founding fathers that they dreamed during the conception of this nation some 235 years ago, we see that by its design, we, the people, are the only ones endowed by our Creator, the God of nature, with the authority, the power, the wherewithal, and the ability to place this nation back onto the path to prosperity. And that is the way it must be. Now, little orphan Annie Yap Yap Coulter Toto the Floozy has just released a new book, one that personifies the cult-like following of Trump that she's had throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle. It's called In Trump We Trust, essentially placing Trump in the position of God. No, folks, you really cannot make this rubbish up, but that is what Coulter entitled her latest book that came out yesterday, which was August 24th of 2016. It's bizarre, but there's some little evidence that not all is right on Home on the Range, which is just funny. It's just laughable, really. In the leaves of that book, Coulter came out and essentially stated that Trump could change on any position. He could waffle on any position save for one, and that is on the issue of the illegal alien problem that is facing these United States of America. That has been the paramount pet issue of the Lion Branch Trumpidians. And don't get me wrong, it's one of the areas where they're right. We should be concerned about this torrent of illegal aliens that have been flowing across our porous borders. But to entrust the mafioso quafioso with that, and to believe that he would quite literally erect a wall, just goes beyond the pale. It's because, again, looking at his past statements, he has never been strict on that. And then looking at his immigration policy that was supposedly penned by Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, it had touchback amnesty, where it would essentially allow them to come back in, to be in line. And now at all times, as we grow ever closer to that looming general election slated for later this November, we see that Trump is once again softening his position, trying to pivot, once again showing that he doesn't hold any core principles or conservative philosophies, just as we have warned here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Folks, it is exactly how we said it would be. He's doing exactly what we said he would do. But of course, the Lion Branch Trumpidians didn't want to listen to us. They latched on to the free airtime and coverage that was given to the mafioso quafioso by the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. And they just wanted to call us cuckservatives. Well, they are the cuckolds here, because Trump is already leaving them to sleep around on them with the illegal aliens. That's why he said that we have to be humane about it. We have to be caring about it. Why do we have to do that when none of the other nations do that? Mexico doesn't do that. If you cross their southern border illegally, you get shot. Or, if you don't get shot, it's an automatic 2-year felony. Well, it's not that way here. In fact, the United States of America has the most lax immigration laws and enforcement in the entire free world. Now, for the populace, that may be hard to wrap their minds around. They think that that's just the system itself. Well, no, it's because they have allowed themselves to be duped and misled by the biggest con artist to ever set foot in the American electoral process and indeed in the American system of polity in the persona of Donaldolph Julius Caesar Trumpolini. You know, I'm left wondering exactly how his people have been able to go out there and defend the things that he said. I've been left wondering how his people can even sleep with themselves at night when he just goes out and assumes any position on any issue so that he can never be wrong. Is it any wonder, then, that there are so many American citizens who are feeling alienated and disenfranchised with our arena of politics? It's because we keep turning to the worst of the worst when it comes to pathological liars. We keep allowing these people to redefine who we are, both as a nation and as a people, and it is always with detrimental outcomes. Again, folks, the illegal alien issue was the #1 driving force throughout this 2016 presidential primary process, at least with the gutless opposition party, or GOP. And that is what a lot of the disillusioned conservatives turn to, and that is why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have referred to the mafioso quafioso as the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives. He's playing this discordinal, disharmonious tune that just seems to make people rawly emote instead of thinking things through. And that is a dangerous situation and position for the American people in their capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in these United States of America to embrace. Why? Because it allows them to be so easily manipulated by con artists like Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump is a shady businessman. His entire career and his entire time spent in the public spotlight for the past 30+ years now has been screwing people over. That's what he's made his mantra. That is what he's made his alleged fortune off of. But again, we don't know what his fortune really is because he simply refuses to release his tax returns, irrespective of the fact that he had demanded the same of the man he endorsed back in 2012, the then GOP nominee Mitt Romney. So we see that, again, hypocrisy just seems to swirl around him. It's the name of the game. It's the way things are progressing in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. And it's despicable. You know, Trump had gone on to an interview with Ronald Kessler at Newsback back on Monday, November 26th at 2012. And he said that Romney's solution of self-deportation for illegal aliens made no sense and suggested that Republicans do not care about Hispanics in general. Now, does that sound like the man that we've heard throughout the vast majority of this 2016 presidential election cycle? The answer is no. It sounds like the Trump that we've seen in very recent days, the Trump that has been softening his position, but it does not sound like the Donald J. Trump that was breathing fire and brimstone when it came to, I'm going to build a wall, it's going to be perfect, everybody's going to love the wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Well, we now see without a doubt, unequivocally, that that was a load of bovine excrement, that he did not mean what he said, that he was lying about it, and here we are. Here we are with, what, practically 70 days until the general election cycle, and he's pulled this stunt, essentially ushering in inevitable defeat, but we knew he was going to have that anyway. This election cycle was decided the moment he clinched the gutless opposition party, or GOP, nomination. I hate to be flippant about it, folks, but that's the way it is, and I wish that I had words of comfort and solace to convey unto you as I sit here and speak into this microphone, but again, I have no such words to convey unto you, because this is the truth. This is what we're facing, and it's untenable, it's unsustainable, it's unacceptable, and he is unelectable. But you know, it's not just on that Newsmax article that he said it. He also appeared on June 18th in 2012 on the Fox and Friends program over there at Quoff News Network and said the following. I've got the soundbite and I'm going to cue it up right now.
Well, it's a very good subject. You don't just play it one way, but for people that have been here for years, that have, been hard workers, have good jobs, or supporting a family, it's very, very tough to just say, by the way, 22 years, you have to leave, get out. Sure. So, a solution has to come up with. It is a very, very difficult situation. I'm one of the world's very conservative people, but I have to tell you, on a human basis, how do you throw somebody out that's lived in this country for 20 years?
So how do you feel about how Romney has handled this so far over the weekend, what he's said and what he's not said?
Well, I think he's handled it good. He's handled it with compassion, but he also said, I want a permanent solution. This is not a solution. This is just really politics. He wants a permanent solution to it, and I think he'll come up with that.
So there you have it, folks. There you have what he said back in 2012. And of course, he was trying to be cautious in the way that he spoke about the then gutless opposition party, or GOP, nominee for the White House race, but he said you can't do it. It's not humane. And so we see that once again, Donald J. Trump uses that language again. He is once again embracing the positions that he held back in 2012 that are diametrically opposed to the positions and to the platitudes that he has thrown out all throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle. And we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been trying to warn you about this for quite some time now. And it just goes to show that the man can't be trusted, because if he's willing to lie about that, what else is he willing to lie about? Well, plenty. Remember, he supported the no fly, no buy, and if you mention due process, we cry bill. And that's because back in 2013, he had supported Dianne Frankenstein from California's assault weapons ban bill. Now that's been all hush-hush. Quoff News Network hasn't gone out and discussed that in any depth or detail. And again, it's because they are providing subterfuge and cover for the mafioso Quaffioso, because he is not a conservative. He has never been, nor will he ever be, a conservative. But where it's really going to be a bit of poetic justice is, as I mentioned earlier in the program, Ann Coulter, Little Orphan Annie Yep Yep Toto Coulter, the floozy, had put out that book where she essentially elevated Trump into a godlike position. She deified the mafioso Quaffioso, said that he couldn't do any wrong. Remember, she had said earlier, I believe it was even during the primary process, that she didn't care if he went and committed abortions on a table in the White House, or in the Rose Garden, or wherever the hell it was. So she said that he could change any position. He could waffle on any position except one, immigration. Well, here he is. He's he is flipping on that. He's flipping on that, and the Lion Branch Trumpidians are flipping out. But you know what? We told you so. We told you that is who he is and what he does. But no, the Lion Branch Trumpidians lock themselves up in the Trumpidian tabernacle and just close their hearts, souls, and minds to common sense and to the open and obvious and objective facts that anyone attempts to convey unto them, and it leads into this disastrous situation that we face right here and right now as I sit here and speak into this microphone. But what good does that do any of us? What good does it do for the conservative cause? Well, again, remember that he had been in a phone conversation with the husband of his presidential opponent, Hillary Rotten Clinton, just months before he threw his quaff into the ring, before he officially threw his quaff into the ring. He is consistently inconsistent ever since that point, and he is purposefully dividing the base of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, and it is by design. That's right, folks. This is literally by design. There's no other way to put it. I don't believe in coincidences of this nature. Certainly not as hard-hitting, as rapid, and as successive as they have been with respect to the mafioso quafioso. And so now we just need to have kind of a repeat of what Trump did on the other night on Bill O'Reilly when he said the following.
We're going to obey the existing laws. Now, the existing laws are very strong. The existing laws, the first thing we're going to do, if and when I win, is we're going to get rid of all of the bad ones. As far as everybody else, we're going to go through the process. What people don't know is that Obama got tremendous numbers of people out of the country.
Isn't that amazing, folks? He was there praising Barack Hussein Obama, the same Barack Hussein Obama who went forward with carte blanche blanket executive amnesty in direct violation of the Constitution, because Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution enumerates the power of enforcing of securing our borders and of dealing with immigration and naturalization squarely to the legislative branch, not to the executive branch. And again, that's why it's so important that whoever we push to be the chief executive of this country must have that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution if they are going to be a proper president. Because, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2, what's known in the common vernacular as the Supremacy Clause, the Constitution itself composes the supreme law of the land. But again, Donald J. Trump doesn't believe that. Donald J. Trump doesn't adhere to that, and therefore we are left with this untenable situation. And so this is interesting to see how Ann Coulter reacted during an interview she had with Chris Tingles Matthews over there at MSCCCP NBC. And I've got that sound clip too.
The American people right now about immigration. What did all that up to? How's it different than Obama?
How is it different from all the candidates he just beat? I go through. That's one of the 5 talking points every politician says.
He's going to deport the felons.
Well, it's very different from the actual policy, but they all say that, and it just sounds very consultant to me. This could be the shortest book tour ever if he's really softening his position on immigration, but I don't think he is.
Let me ask you a question about illegal immigration. I think, we don't do it anymore, but NBC News would always show those pictures from down in Texas or Arizona or somewhere on the border, the Canadian-Mexican border, and they would show desperate people racing across when the lights were off, and they would see them coming in, they'd see them running the road to try to get a ride in a truck somewhere or something. How do you stop that? How do you stop that? Because what that is are men mostly racing across the border to try to get a job in the United States, which they know is going to be there somewhere. Somebody in Chicago in a restaurant or somewhere say, I got a job for you if you can get up here. How do you stop the illegal hiring? Because he never mentions that. Trump never mentions it.
No, I wish he would.
Isn't that the heart of it?
That's what I wish you were talking about now. And plus, H-1B visas, plus people losing their jobs, plus Kate Steinle again. I mean, why? There are only so many things you can talk about. Why are we talking about softening the lies of lawbreakers? I think this is a mistake.
Well, yeah, Annie, it's a mistake. It's a mistake that all of you Lion Branch Trumpidians just clamored to his side, that you believed all of the lies and subterfuge that the mafioso quafioso used in this, the greatest con game that has been pulled off in the history of the American electorate. Folks, you seriously, you truly cannot make this stuff up. And she should be right in that this ought to be the shortest book tour in her career. We tried to warn you, Annie. Honest to God, we did. We tried to warn you to not fling yourself into obscurity and irrelevancy. But like the rest of the Lion Branch Trumpidian tabernacle, you threw yourself into it. And now you've become associated with white nationalists. But hey, that's okay. It's one of those things that's rough and abrasive, and it's counterintuitive, and therefore it'll sell books, right? Well, how are you going to sell books when the man you championed, the man who you deified in the title of it, saying "In Trump we trust," betrayed you? Essentially threw you under the bus, essentially abandoned every position that you held near and dear. Well, it's not looking good for you. It's not looking good for your credibility. It's not looking like you are in touch with reality, because we all recall that you were, touting the alleged or so-called rhino candidates back in 2008 and 12. Give me an ever-loving break. You were Mitt Romney's cheerleader, and then you were Krispy Kreme, Governor Krispy Kreme there in New Jersey's cheerleader, until you came in contact with the mafioso quafioso who convinced you that your next pet project should be the illegal alien crisis of the United States of America, and you didn't dare look at his past positions on it. And even now, you were still defending him a little bit there when he has clearly gone over to the other side, when he is clearly embracing El Jefe Jebe Bush's act of love type mentality, saying that we need to soften the laws that are on the books, going back to the 2012 positions he held, saying that it was inhumane to enforce the law. Hello, the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men, or at least it used to be, and that's what it needs to be if it is ever going to be placed back onto the path of prosperity. But you don't understand that, Annie. You just don't. That's why you've gone out of your way to sell your soul, and it's despicable and disgusting. It truly is despicable and disgusting to see what you have done, what you have been willing to do to yourself. And what a shame. Because you did used to have a very stellar career. Well, I'm reading the political tea leaves now, Annie, and it don't look too good for you. It just doesn't. But folks, throughout it all, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, because Trump utilized the Polish Brigade, illegal aliens from Poland, to construct Trump Tower. He has done that with Mar-a-Lago down in Florida. He has shown that he's got this repeated pattern, and so again, he is consistently inconsistent, particularly when it comes to matters of the truth. And then he goes forth with this universal view that the world and the universe is centered around the great, shining, deified Donaldov Julius Caesar Trumpolini, and that's what his cult-like followers, that cult of personality that just follows him anywhere and everywhere he goes, bows down to. That's what they love. That's what they want to acquiesce to. That is what they want to be at the helm of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. But that's a very dangerous position for us to be. That is a position that we can ill afford to assume, particularly when you consider that the United States of America is in the midst of an identity crisis coupled with a slew of constitutional crises brought about by the effort of these frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftists to utterly dismantle the United States of America both as a nation and as a people. And so when we are facing such dire consequences, when the cards are all out on the table, when our sovereignty hangs in the balance, we can ill afford to go down this path. We just can't afford it. It is detrimental. It will have long-lasting and far-reaching impacts. of which I don't think these people have thought it through. I don't think they're capable of thinking it through. I don't think that they've ever once put it through their minds. Certainly the mafioso quafioso himself has not, otherwise he wouldn't be all over the map with it. He's playing with fire here. He has opened up the proverbial Pandora's box, and I'm afraid of what the outcome might be for the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people. Where are we going to go from here? What is it going to lead to? How is this going to play out in the grand scheme of things? I don't know. But I can tell you this, it's not good. It's not something that would play out well with his most ardent and staunch acolytes and supporters. It's totally diametrically opposed to the positions that he assumed and took during the primary process, that he used to bludgeon his other candidates, and even Ann Coulter herself was there admitting that he was essentially assuming the same position of all of the, 15 or 16 other candidates that he vanquished, quote unquote, during the presidential primary process. I mean, it was an unimaginable amount of people that we had vying for the nomination. And we get the worst, most disqualified one out of the lot. Because once again, the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media was allowed to select the gutless opposition party, or GOP, presidential nominee. We warned about that here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. But, of course, the Lion Branch Trumpidians live in their own world. They have their own set of conduct. They have their own set of beliefs, and they will adhere to that come hell or high water. Because it doesn't matter who gets harmed in the process. It doesn't matter who is left out to dry. They just want to see the whole system burn, and therefore they have thrown their weight and support behind the arsonist. The very arsonist that has been running around setting these brush fires that will ultimately consume the entire governmental edifice of the United States. But we cannot allow that to go forward. We cannot afford to allow that to happen because we have nothing, logistically speaking, in place to protect, to safeguard, and maintain our fundamental and inalienable rights, which were endowed to us by our Creator, who happens to be none other than the God of nature himself. That's where we are. That is the current untenable situation in which we find ourselves today as I sit here and speak into this microphone. And they should have listened. They should have listened. But no, listening comprehension is not something that works in their rank and file. At the Lion Branch Trumpidian Tabernacle, they teach selective hearing. Hear only what you want to hear, and go out and champion only that which you care about, and disregard anyone who brings up any logical and reasonable question with respect to our Cheeto Jeebus's positions and his quaff waffling that has become the hallmark of the 2016 presidential election cycle thus far. And you see, folks, this is just a gift on a silver platter for Hillary Clinton. It allows her to just sit back and cruise through this, to just relax. Donald Trump is self-destructing. He is imploding before our very eyes. But, you know, we told you so. Don't like saying that necessarily, but we did. And now we are paying the consequences, paying the price, because so many people just wanted to buy onto a populist bandwagon, which is nothing more than a thin veneer for frothing at the mouth Fabianism. Now, why is it that we cannot seem to get past this? Why is it that we wind up in election cycle after successive election cycle with the worst candidate? Well, it's because of the cult of personality. It's because of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. And it is because of this tyranny of a false unity. A tyranny of a false unity does not work. It has never worked. And it will not work in this election cycle. In fact, this is going to be one of the bloodiest of general election cycles. It's got all of the hallmark characteristics of it. It's got all of the telltale signs that show that it is not going to go the way that the gutless opposition party, or GOP, wants it to, and it's not going the way that Donaldolf Julius Caesar Trumpidian has been spewing with his hate-filled mouth that it would, and so it's going to leave conservatives holding the bag, being typecast once again by the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftists and their allies in the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. It is a cornucopia of disaster. And that was avoidable. Completely avoidable. That is what makes this more tragic than any election cycle of living memory. It really does. We still have so much time left to go, too, folks, that it's just, I don't see this getting better at any time within the foreseeable future. I just seriously don't. You know, folks, just when you thought things couldn't get any more bizarre than they already have in this disastrous 2016 presidential election cycle, they go out and get worse. Donald J. Trump is not even on the ballot in, where is it? It's in Minnesota. Now, how does this happen? Remember, we showed throughout the primary process that he was dismantling his ground game in the moments after he had won the various primary and caucus states that he did throughout that entire process and just moved on. It's because he's a miser, he's a cheapskate, but it also raises up that question that whether he was truly committed to winning. And for the longest time, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, did not believe that he was truly committed to winning. He didn't assume the positions that one who wants to win would assume. But over at Red State, the news is that Donald Trump is not on the ballot in Minnesota. As of today, the GOP has no candidate for president on the ballot in Minnesota. Now, how do you make a monumental and colossal error like that? How do you do that? Well, it shows again that he is an amateur. The only ones that are outsiders are the people that are running the Trump campaign. This has been the most disorganized, the most ridiculous campaign out there, and of course that would also go straight in line with this consistently inconsistent positions that he's held when it comes to conservative values and principles. And again, it shows that when he's going against Hillary Rotten Clinton, who has a well-oiled machine, a well-oiled political machine, for lack of a better term, he's ill-equipped. He's not prepared for this. He is not prepared to take the steps that are necessary to propel him to victory. And of course, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been watching with just wide-eyed horror with the rest of you as this debacle unfurls before this shocked nation. There really is no other way to put this, folks. There's no other way to analyze this or to discuss it other than to say that this man is a hack. He is a charlatan and a hack. And America deserves and demands far greater than this, far better than this. And we've been led astray. There's no other way to put it. But we see that he didn't lose in Minnesota, but this sheer incompetence that we're seeing might be a clever ploy by Trump to avoid a Mondale-esque 50-state blowout, because he could always come back, as Red State pointed out there, and try and claim, well, but I wasn't on the ballot in one state. I wasn't on the ballot in one state. And folks, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make the incompetence up. You cannot make up his sheer lack of energy. He attacked El Jefe Jeb Bush as being the low-energy candidate. Well, then he must be the low-intelligence candidate. And I seriously think that is the case with respect to the mafioso quafioso. I truly do. So let's see. Who is on the ballot there? Well, they have Hillary with the Democrats, and they have Darrell Castle with the Constitution Party, Dan Vakek with the Legal Marijuana Now Party, Allison Kennedy with the Socialist Workers Party, and remember that Trump wanted to transform the Republican Party to that, Jill Stein with the Loopy Green Party, Rocky Roque de la Fuente with the American Delta Party, Evan McMullen with the Independence Party, and of course that weird freak Gary Johnson with the Libertarian Party. But no Donaldoff Julius Caesar Trumpidian, no Republican gutless opposition party on the ballot in Minnesota. Now, why is it that the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the Salvadoran mainstream media have not been trumpeting this? Well, I think they're sitting on it, because as we have oft-times reiterated on previous episodes, they have been waiting with the most damning evidence, with the most damning stories to hold back, because what they ultimately want to do is sink his candidacy at the last moment, but he's doing a mighty fine job of that himself. And while Red State may have gone out there and claimed that this was incompetence, I am left again with that nagging question, that lingering question of whether or not this was done on purpose. And I think it was. I think it was, because he really is fearing that type of all-state landslide loss that Walter Mondale had faced against Ronald Reagan. And what is stupendous about this in a horrific manner is that this is happening against the weakest Democrat frontrunner and nominee that they have foisted upon the American electorate in living memory, at least for the past half century. It is utterly bizarre, and this should have been the election cycle in which conservatism won. But conservatism has been thrown under the bus by people like Lush Bimbo, people like Little Orphan Annie Toto Yap Yap Coulter, the floozy, people like Matt Drudge, and people like Michael Weiner Savage and Laura Inkoff. They are the ones that betrayed their values. They are the ones that betrayed their core principles and just showed to all of us who are serious about the Constitution, those of us who are dyed-in-the-wool constitutional compositionists, that this was all just a cash cow to them, a money-making scheme that they have been for successive decades now trying to manipulate us. And that cannot be allowed to go forth without holding these people accountable for their words, deeds, and actions, and even their omissions. And folks, that is the reason why I have nicknamed this election cycle as the election cycle of betrayal. I cannot think of a more apt description for it. These are the people that have betrayed us. They've betrayed their own values, and I can't imagine that they have a bright future left as pundits and commentaries. But, you see, that's where we are. That has become the new norm in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. We have been left to field this excrement storm alone. And it really is an unpleasant scenario, an unpleasant situation, and I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but here we are. We have to accept reality for what reality is, and we have to deal with it to the best of our ability. But that's what we do as Americans. We overcome every hurdle, obstacle, and adversity that has been placed in our path in our relatively brief yet illustrious history, and I believe we shall do so again. It is within our DNA. It truly is. But you do have to sit back and ask yourself, how did we wind up in this situation? How did we go from having such wonderful prospects to essentially now staring defeat in the face? Well, it came about because of just this anger, this bitterness of the Lion Branch Trumpidian tabernacle. But it's not just them. There was the crossover voters in the open primaries, which the RNC didn't want to fix. There has been chicanery. There has been collusion with the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, and it's come together in a cacophony of destruction, disillusion, and detriment. And that's where we are. That's where we find ourselves as I sit here and speak into this microphone. But again, we can overcome these problems. But the way to do it is to stop turning to these messianic figures, these people who claim that they and they alone hold all of the keys to placing these United States of America back onto the path to prosperity, because that is diametrically opposed to who we are as a nation and as a people. That's why we have to get back to basics. That's why fostering that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution, and thereby your fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, is of the paramount importance. Because then you know how to combat these people. You begin to stand up for yourself and have the ability to do so. So here it is. We see that he is flipping on amnesty. He is basically assuming El Jefe Jebe Bush's position. So does that mean that we can finally come out and call this man the high-energy, low-energy candidate, the destructive quaff waffler of low value? Because if El Jefe Jebe Bush was low energy, then Trump truly is low value. And it goes back to that word. And it's ironic how archaic English had a word for this: trumpery, flashy, showy, but ultimately meaningless and holding virtually no value. Well, that's where we are, folks. That is what we see here. That is what this 2016 presidential election cycle has devolved into. And it's not going to get any better at any time in the foreseeable future. So why did he decide to flip-flop on amnesty? It's beyond anyone who ever once believed him. But we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, never once did believe the mafioso quaffioso. He is the quaff waffler, after all. But Politistick has asked that question. So he's flip-flopping. He goes full-on pro-amnesty, rhino establishment, global, and yes, cuckold, conservative. Because that's what they do. And here's what Trump has said. No citizenship. Let me go a step further. They'll pay back taxes. How will they pay back taxes? They won't pay back taxes. They have to pay taxes. There's no amnesty as such. There's no amnesty, but we work with them. Why work with lawbreakers? Prosecute them. Go through the laws that are on the book. Oh, but that's right. Back in 2012, you said that we can't do that. That eliminates the human element. That is un-American and too mean-spirited. Well, get over yourself, Trumpalini. You are betraying your base. But we knew you would, and you knew you would. This was all just a great charade on your part. It really was. But you know, it comes straight out of The Art of the Steal, or The Art of the Squeal, or is that The Art of the Deal? I don't remember which, but his ghostwriter had laid out the plan that he would take out the most staunch position. That's what he would hold to, going to the negotiating table and then move back to what he really wanted. And folks, what he really wanted is the same views that he has espoused for the vast majority of his 70 years on Earth. That of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist position. Again, that's why we look at his history. That history of his predicts exactly what he would do. If you had looked at that, and if you had acknowledged that, and if you had not tried to sit there and make up excuses for it, we wouldn't be in this disastrous scenario and situation that we face right now. But there's no use in crying over spilt milk. But Trump, he just can't help himself. He just loves to be the quaff-waffling mafioso quaffioso.
When somebody really has shown, it's called like the merit system, other than they did break the law in the first place, okay? And that's a little unfair to people, but we're going to let people come in anyway. They'll come in legally. We're going to let people come in anyway. It's not going to have an impact. So, do we tell these people to get out, number one, or do we work with them and let them stay in some form? Okay, are you ready? I'm just curious.
Now, you see that he was essentially polling the audience there. That's what he was doing, again, showing that he doesn't have any deliberate positions of his own, that he doesn't hold any staunch positions or any core principles or values, but of course that's just who Donald Julius Caesar Trumpolini is and has always been. But we see that this is aggravating his followers. It even aggravated his loudest little lapdog there and little orphan Annie Yap Yap Toto Coulter the Floozy. And she was out on that book tour, which she herself admitted earlier in that soundbite that I played in the show that it would be one of her shortest ones. Well, she's mad. She's real mad. Annie, you should have listened. Well, we told you this man was a fraud. We told you this man was a just lying piece of human excrement. But nobody wants to delve into that any deeper than what has happened. Nobody wants to really hold the mafioso quafioso accountable for his words, deeds, and actions. But if we are ever going to place this nation back onto the path to prosperity, we are going to have to start holding people accountable, including Donald Julius Caesar Trumpolini, perhaps even more specifically him, particularly with him, with particular emphasis upon him. But it was so bad, his flip-flop on amnesty, that Ann Coulter went out and retweeted Rick Wilson. This is just funny, folks. Twitchy put this out. Ann Coulter said at 3:50 a.m. on August 25th, today, only part he left out was the hoops they'll have to jump through. Trump, citizenship. Let me go a step further. They'll pay back taxes. Coulter then went on, quoting Trump more, they have to pay taxes. There's no amnesty. Then she adds in parentheticals, pro tip. Back taxes means we pay illegals $30,000 apiece in EITC. Then she goes on and says that it's not amnesty, it's comprehensive immigration reform. Trump, they have to pay taxes. There's no amnesty. Then she went on and said, well, if it's hard, then never mind. Trump, to take a person who's been here for 15 or 20 years, it's a very hard thing. Then she goes on and says, it's hard to deport someone who's been here for 4 years. You see, Trump is reassuming the position that he held in 2012. He is assuming the positions that are more aligned into the way that he naturally thinks, into who he is. Again, this is why when the Lion Branch Trumpidian Tabernacle tries to tell you that you shouldn't delve into his past, that they are fools. Because you need to delve into the past. That is the best predictor on future behavior. Because he has a pattern, particularly when you reach the age that Donald Julius Caesar Trumpolini has reached. He is essentially being the quaff waffler, like he has always been. And it's always just about him. So she's just gone really, really out there. And it's funny. It's funny. She's panicked. She's panicked because of the way that she so flippantly, just and blatantly and recklessly hitched herself to the candidacy of Donald Julius Caesar Trumpolini, that she's lost all credibility. Now, she was losing it already anyway. She was already having that problem far before this 2016 election cycle went onto the fray. But how do we find ourselves here? They must really be surprised. And again, it's an I told you so moment. We told you so. All of the Never Trump movement that you went out and lambasted and trying to force us into a tyranny of false unity, you are the ones who didn't listen to reality. You are the ones who have egg on your face right here and right now. And you know what's funny? Kellyanne Conway has failed to be able to distinguish what Trump is doing now from that of what either Rubio or Bush or anyone else did on quote-unquote immigration. Now, Cruz was the one that stayed true to it. Cruz is the one who's still fighting to ensure that they never get any of the Social Security type benefits or the Medicare benefits or all of the other social spending that would just further plunge this nation into bankruptcy on the Senate floor. He's doing that, but Trump is embracing amnesty just like he always would, just like he had in the past. Why does anyone believe a word this man says? How can you honestly sit there and believe that this man is telling you the truth when he has a penchant for lying? He has always been a liar. That's his modus operandi. That is why he is the mafioso quafioso. And it plays out in just stunning, horrific fashion to where no one can just sit there and believe that this man has our best interests in his heart, because he never has. It's always been about him. It's always about him. And so, should he change the shallow, hollow, empty, and meaningless platitude of his campaign away from that of, quote-unquote, make America great again, to make amnesty great again? Because that's what he's doing. He is now essentially, after the fact, ex post facto, attached himself to the Gang of 8 bill. So is it now the Gang of 9 bill? Is he the 9th member of this nontet of idiocy? Because it sure seems that way. It sure seems that that's the policy positions he's holding. But it gets even worse. His spokeswoman gets laughed at by the panel over there at CNN News when she tries diligently, moronically even, to defend his flip-flopping on this. It's amazing.
Big change. Well, first, let me correct the record first. Donald Trump did go to the community in the primary. It was in March and it was in Chicago. So I hope that CNN continues to correct that narrative moving forward by saying that he's never even tried to go to the community, because he has. And secondly, he hasn't changed his position on immigration. He's changed the words that he is saying. What he has always said from the beginning is that he does not, that he does not want.
He changed the words? You know what we call that? We call that doublespeak. We call that lying. We call that being a mafioso, quafioso, quaff-waffler. And that's what he does. And you see, it's pathetic the way these people try and genuflect, twisting themselves into a pretzel to try and forgive all of Don Trumpolini's foibles and failings and shortcomings. But it's a failing process. It's only going to lead to imminent failure. Why? Because it's already irritating his base. You heard the reaction that the Lion Branch Trumpidian Tabernacle had in that town hall little recording that he had with Sean Hannity, who has gone to kiss the ring of Drumpf. Again, the man has no true principles, no core values, no inherent belief in conservatism. He doesn't value the things that we hold near and dear. He just goes out and makes an utter fool of himself to such a degree that his own spokespeople are getting laughed at. It's a little bit like Jay Carneyface when he was out there trying to defend Barack Hussein Obama with lie after lie. And then his current one, I forget the little weasel's name, Josh Earnest. Yes, that's it. Josh Earnest, the man who is earnest to lie on behalf of Darfur Banana Mana, Obama himself. We see that Christina Pearson is basically assuming that role. And if, God forbid, Donald J. Trump ever did manage to win his White House bid, could you imagine the type of genuflecting that the press secretary would have to do? It would make Obama look like an honest saint, and that is literally, truly saying something. But if you recall, back in 2009, Trump had gone out and said that Barack Hussein Obama was doing a good job because he was doing things that nobody else could do, that he was, being a strong man. Now, isn't that funny? Because Trump has always had a penchant and liking for strongmen, for dictatorial authoritarian types. He himself has an authoritarian strain that just runs straight through his body. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You really cannot make this stuff up. But that is what Trumpy does. He goes out and he just flip-flops on everything. Everything. And it just goes to show that they are pushing for a populist type of view that is leading us to a place where we can't go. And it's funny, even McMullen has blasted Trump's amnesty flip-flop. He said, we can't have a president who lies to the American people. Unfortunately, we've had a president who continuously, unrelentingly, meticulously, and repeatedly lies to the American people with Barack Hussein Obama. But it's going to be worse with Trump. I don't even think Hillary Clinton could lie as much as Trump does, because Trump is assuming the greatest lie of all. He is proclaiming himself to be a conservative when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. That is the great lie. That is the great wicked lie that has become the linchpin of this 2016 presidential election cycle. And it's one we can't escape. It's one we can't ignore. But it's there. It's there, open and obvious for anyone who is looking at this in any kind of an open and objective fashion to see. And folks, it shows no signs of improving at any time within the foreseeable future. We are just going to have to batten down the hatches and prepare ourselves for the excrement storm that is headed our way, marked with a bad hairdo. Because that's what Trump is. That's what he has always been. But it's not just we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, who said this. Jay Caruso over there at Red State put out an article that said, Trump supporters were warned he's a fraud, they did not listen, and now the chickens are roosting. Yes, they have come home to roost. And it's exactly as so many of us who are true movement conservatives, who are true constitutional compositionists have said. We've reiterated it time and again. And yet, the Lion Branch Trumpidians didn't want to listen to it. They just wanted to close their eyes and ears and minds to reality. Why? Was it just that painful? Was it that painful to admit the truth? Or is it that you like being lied to? Is it that you have grown so accustomed to being lied to that you want to openly embrace the man who has mastered the art of the lie rather than the art of the deal? It's not just negotiation. This goes beyond negotiation. You don't lie to successfully negotiate. That's what we call blackmail. That's what we call bamboozling people. But it's there, clear as anything to see. And here's the amazing thing. A Trump supporter and head of a pro-Trump super PAC has come out and said that if the election were held today, Trump would lose badly. This was Ed Rollins, who admitted to Laura Inkampf, who along with the likes of Sean Hannity, is a sycophantic Trump cheerleader, that he'd lose badly today. Why? Why did they not just listen? It's because they bought into the fear-mongering, they bought into all of this malarkey that a singular individual could save this country, when in fact, by the very design of this federalist, constitutionally endowed, representative Republican form of government of ours, It's only we the people who can save this country. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it always should be if we are ever to maintain our sovereignty and to maintain our secure identity and to profess unto the world exactly who we are and who we have always been. That's how you get back to the path to prosperity. That is how you release America from the chains and shackles of governmental tyranny, bondage, servitude, and ultimately oppression. But Trump doesn't care about that. Trump saw this as a way to get richly, bigly richly. And so he has gone out and just reiterated his efforts, redoubled his efforts to be consistently inconsistent, driving that proverbial wedge into the base of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, ensuring that we will not win the 2016 election cycle, at least not at the presidency. But down ticket things are looking bad too. So we have to say, if you really want to ensure that conservatism lives, survives, and remains vital, and doesn't go into the slumber like it did after Herbert Hoover with the outbreak of the Wall Street crash of 1929, vote down ticket. Vote your conscience down ticket, but do vote down ticket. Because these Fabian socialists have used this plant to create this disaster that is unfurling and unraveling before our very eyes. It's destructive. It's just a nightmare to behold. Yet here we are, we're beholding it. It is occurring within an election cycle which we should have been in the best position to win, because of the failed policies of Barack Hussein Obama, because of these destructive, nonsensical, idiotic positions that he has assumed in these disastrous 8 years and 2 terms of his regime. Instead, we find ourselves facing the weakest Democrat candidate in the last half century, with the most unpopular candidate since we started recording negatives in our electoral process. You couldn't write a worse script than this. You just couldn't. And so we find ourselves in this unbearable situation with seemingly no respite from any and all of this tribulation that's there. And it's just sickening. It's disgusting. But again, it's got to go back to a question that Trump really brought up when he said, we're going to win so much you're going to get sick of winning. Recall that? Because I recall it. And I've even got the soundbite for it.
You're going to be so proud of your country if I get in. You're going to be so proud of your president, and I don't care about that. But you are going to be so proud of your country, because we're going to turn it around and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with health care and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more. We're going to win so much. I love you, Albany. Get out and vote. You will be so happy.
Yeah, you're just going to be so happy winning because I'm great at winning, except right now I'm not really winning because I'm kind of an idiot. But, I got smally hands and perfect hair forever. Yeah, where is all that winning, Don Trumpidian? I'm not seeing any winning. I'm seeing a lot of bovine excrement. I'm seeing a lot of failed promises. I'm seeing a lot of grandiose promises, which you thought you could use to bamboozle the American people. But we're on to you, Trump. We are on to you because we know what you're trying to accomplish. We know what you're doing is bad, but you just don't care. You just are going to do whatever you can to thrust this down our throats and against our will, and for what purpose? To advance your agenda? irrespective of who it harms, irrespective of the detrimental and deleterious impact that it has on this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours? That's not the path of a winner, that's the path of a loser. You are a pathological loser, and there is no other way to describe you. And that is why we have been so vociferous in fighting you, because you can't be a political winner in these United States of America if you have no idea what's in our shared United States Constitution, if you have no, or rather, if you see no inherent or intrinsic value in the greatest social compact or contract ever devised by the hands of men, yet divinely inspired by providence above. So spare me all of this. That's what we're saying. Spare us your bovine excrement, because it has been breathlessly intolerable since the time of the primary process and all the way through the electoral process thus far. And he's not going to do anything to improve it. It's par for the course with him. It's what is becoming a new norm, and it's disgusting. We can't tolerate that. We can't accept that. That's not who we are, either as a nation or as a people. But that's what Trump wants us to believe. That's certainly what Trump is going to double down on, because it's all he knows how to do. To lie, and to be in the press, and just to be a vainglorious individual. This sort of narcissism is reckless, and we have suffered far too much of that under these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. We can ill afford to go another term like that. But we can ill afford to have Hillary either, so we are in the proverbial rock and hard place. We are in between the proverbial rock and hard place, and it's not getting any better. There's nothing here of which I could convey to you to provide you solace. The Lion Branch Trumpidian in their tabernacle of Trumpocracy have brought us here, and they want to use Trumptation to lure us over to his side. Well, they forget that our loyalty is only to the Constitution, because that's the way that our founding fathers devised this nation at its inception some 235 years ago. That's where we are. And that's where we have always been. We have been consistent, whereas he has not once been consistent throughout this entire electoral process. We have always said that he was unacceptable, that we could not coalesce around a man like that we could not support a charlatan like that. We meant what we said. I know that's difficult for the Lion Branch Trumpidians who suffer from that acute ostrich syndrome to figure out, but it is the God's honest truth. We do not waver from our support and loyalty and love to our shared United States Constitution, because it is through that we are able to protect, defend, and proactively maintain our fundamental and inalienable rights that were endowed to us by our Creator, the God of nature himself. But again, that goes a little bit beyond the pale. For the Lion Branch Trumpidians, they can't wrap their minds around it. It's far too bigly. It's not written in crayon for them to understand. Maybe it needs to be written in gold Sharpie, like the pictures that Don Trumpolini always sends to the former producers of Spy magazine for being the first ones to poke fun at his really small hands. And they are. Folks, they really are small hands. And he really hates that. I just find that so humorous. I always have. So what I want to understand is, what's the deal with Trump? Why is he saying that we want to work with those that break the law? It goes beyond the pale. It goes beyond all rationality. But you see, this is the post-truth campaign. You know, they claim that Barack Hussein Obama winning in 2008 put us into the post-racial campaign. Well, this is the post-truth campaign, because Donald J. Trump and Hillary Rotten Clinton are liars extraordinaire. They do not have any loyalty to the Constitution, and they are certainly not people who espouse the truth. I have a feeling that they wouldn't even know what the truth was if it came up and bit them in the posterior. But if we are ever to place this nation back onto the path of prosperity, we are going to have to come to terms with these problems. And these problems are only growing by the day. And what we see is that even Conservative Review pointed out that Donald J. Trump's shift on immigration policy sure sounds a lot like quote-unquote low-energy Jeb Bush's talking points. In fact, it's an exact match. You see, again, Donald J. Trump has never had an original idea move through that harebrain of his. He has always copied others, and that is how he has made his political campaign move forward. Of course, it also fully explains why he is unable to expound upon and elaborate upon his specific policy positions. He is unable to provide any policy specifics because the man truly has none. He has never really embraced a specific policy. I suppose what he was thinking was that he could just go out and try and do this as one of the sales pitches and try and be the charlatan and the snake oil salesman that he always has been, but it's not going to work, not in a political cycle, not when it is our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights and our very sovereignty that hangs in the balance. But for the Lion Branch Trumpidians, none of this matters. As far as they're concerned, Donald Trump can still do no wrong except for people like Ann Coulter. I really do love the fact that little orphan Annie Yap Yap Toto Coulter, the floozy, is finding egg on her face, is just finding it palpable that her, her knight in shining hair has failed her. And he has failed her. He's failed each and every one of them, and we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, said that he would. We said that he would because he is not for anything that we hold near and dear. That he has, for the vast majority of his 70 years spent on God's green earth, espoused the most ardent positions of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist left, who is hell-bent on utterly annihilating the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people. But you have to look at his past. You have to pay attention to the very things that he has been doing that has placed this nation in such an untenable situation. And that's why he also just went out there and backed, financially, all of these intolerable candidates. But why does the Trump movement, that Trump tabernacle, just want to ignore this? Why do they always try and just sweep it under the rug as if that is going to somehow place this nation back onto the path of prosperity? I guess they literally believe that he is going to push this nation back onto the path of prosperity all by himself, even though by the very inherent design of these United States of America, no singular entity, individual, or branch of government is enumerated with such power. And the reason that they're not enumerated with that type of power is that we, the people, are the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. Look back at the clear and concise language contained in the preamble of our shared United States Constitution, and you see that it opens with the words, "We, the people of the United States, do ordain and establish this Constitution in order to create a more perfect union." And we will be talking about an idiot who works for Laura Incomp's little news site over there who tries to say that this is worshiping the Constitution. You know, this man really should be ashamed of himself, but there is no such thing as shame in the Lion Branch Trumpidian tabernacle. They just want to double down on all of their efforts. They just want to continue to foist these untenable situations and untenable, unsustainable, and unelectable candidates upon us. But it is going to come to a point where we have to have a day of reckoning. And that day of reckoning is slated for this general election cycle in November. And right now, the way that the political tea leaves are floating up to the surface, it looks as though Donald Trump is getting ready to go to a historic, monumental, and ground-shaking, earth-shattering defeat. But It cannot be said that the Lion Branch Trumpidian Tabernacle was not warned of this unsavory situation. We have been warning them, not just us. All of us in the Never Trump movement tried to warn them. We have been consistent in our position, and I know that that is a foreign and alien concept to the Lion Branch Trumpidian Tabernacle. It's why they go out there and sing these discordinal, disharmonious tunes as though they have some great enlightenment that no one else is privy to. But the fact of the matter remains, they are fools. They are fools that bought into it. They are fools that think that he would just be free for them. But it does go back to what his people had been pushing. They thought that he was a straight shooter. We said he wasn't, and now I believe that the record can set this straight once and for all. Donald J. Trump was never once serious about what he said, particularly with respect to being anti-amnesty, that he has always embraced a position that is untenable, and that he would fall back on it. Here we are. Here we are, folks, just as we said it would unfold. So, where do we go from here? Where do we go? Well, nowhere. And what's funny is Matt Drudge, who has been one of the chief component acolytes of Donaldolph Julius Caesar Trumpolini, the mafioso quafioso himself, has remained silent on this issue. He's once again providing subterfuge and cover for the Donaldolph. I hope that Matt Drudge loses all credibility because of the way that he has conducted himself throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle. I hope that he loses all of his internet traffic, because he certainly would be deserving of that. Because we cannot tolerate this sort of chicanery. We cannot tolerate these sorts of liars continuing to spin their web of deceit, duping decent, hard-working, red-blooded American citizens. Folks, there will be a reckoning, and it will be an ugly sight because of those who betrayed their principles and who were willing to sell out for populism, the shiny new thing on the street. Give me an ever-loving break. Populism, any and every time that it has been tried and attempted in these United States of America, has ultimately failed. It has never been a winning scenario. It has never been a winning solution, and it will never propel this nation back to the path to prosperity. That is only going to come through the hard work and the diligent and meticulous efforts of we the people in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. Again, it is that cut and dry. It is that simple. It is that black and white. And we need to start sooner rather than later, because that will be the only way that we can get this nation back onto the path to prosperity. We have, once again, must get back to we ourselves being self-reliant, self-accountable, and thereby self-determinate. That's what makes the United States great. Donald Trump doesn't understand that. Donald Trump is of the belief that he and he alone can bring this nation back onto a viable path to vitality, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth, because he does not possess the wherewithal, nor does he even possess the authority to do so. So again, the onus and burden of the duty, obligation, and above all, responsibility of saving this nation falls on the shoulders of we the people, and we the people alone. That is the inexorable, self-evident truth that we should all recognize clearly after the way that we are once again being betrayed, just as we said we would be, by this man. It really requires that we start prodding ourselves, that we start looking for the truth, that we begin to pull the wool from our eyes that the supposed conservative punditry and commensurate have been pulling over our eyes for far too long now. all of them will have to be held accountable. And this should be the point of no return, folks. How many times should they continue to be forgiven by us? They can be forgiven by their Savior, but not by us. We cannot just allow this sort of chicanery to become a new norm in the American system of polity. Because if it remains as a new norm, this death spiral that haunts, ails, and afflicts these United States of America is not only going to continue unabated, it is going to accelerate exponentially. And again, the only ones who have the power and the onus and the ability to yank us back from that is we ourselves. It truly is only we who can. You know, the other thing I have to point to is, remember when Trump was trying to play cute with the endorsements that he got from former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, David Duke? Well. Clinton has now run an ad, just as I said she would, trying to tie him to it. We knew this was coming, but it can't get any better than this, can it?
The reason Klan members like Trump is because a lot of what he believes, we believe in. Donald Trump would be best for the job.
For president.
Yeah.
I am a farmer and white nationalist. Support Donald Trump.
Sending out all the illegals, building a wall, and a moratorium on Islamic immigration. That's very appealing to a lot of ordinary white people.
Voting against Donald Trump at this point is really treason to your heritage.
Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists?
I don't know anything about white supremacists, so I don't know.
Trump named Steve Bannon as his new campaign CEO. Mr. Bannon is best known for his controversial Breitbart News,
a campaign chair that ran a website that has become a field day for the alt-right, which is racist and all sorts of other ists.
The alt-right, which is the sort of dressed up in suits version of the neo-Nazi and white supremacist movements.
A lot of what he believes, we believe in.
There it is, folks. There it is, as clear as day. That is what they're doing. That is what they have always done. And it's not going to get better. And Trump continues to supply them with all of the ammunition they need to continue to hit him. And they will hit him. They will not back down from that. And therefore, again, it falls on us to try and pick up the shattered pieces of what is left behind from this Trumpnado. That is just a destructive thing. It has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. But we will overcome this, just as we have overcome every hurdle, obstacle, and adversity that has been placed in our path in our relatively brief yet illustrious history. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. Folks, I promise she will not flip-flop on the alcohol issue. She'll just pour it for you. As always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. I also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you have either here on our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. And on top of that, I invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX, and there you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my First Officer Jeremy Grapenton, our Blogspot account, which now also has our audio-only versions of our programs, and our Cafe Press account, where you'll find all sorts of trinkets and goodies with our traditional classic logo on it, or our first-class passenger logo on it. We have shirts, shoes, ties, tote bags, laptop bags, you name it, we have it. All at reasonable prices. Go ahead and take a look at that, folks, and give us a little bit of support so that we can continue to fly you over the friendly airwaves, leaving you with an indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment as always. Once again, folks, thank you for flying the Wright Flyer. We'll see you next time. Do take care.